The cargo ship Wanderer drifted silently through the dark edge of space, its engines weak and damaged after the battle near the Orion Belt. Red warning lights flashed across the empty hallways, and smoke slowly moved through the cold metal corridors. Captain Ryan Cole walked carefully toward the control room while holding his injured side. Blood stained his jacket, but he ignored the pain because stopping meant death. Behind him, the sound of distant explosions echoed through space. Enemy ships were still searching for survivors, and Ryan knew they would destroy anyone they found. He quickly checked the radar screen. 3 alien hunter ships were getting closer every minute. "They found me already," he whispered to himself. Ryan had spent most of his life running from wars, smugglers, pirates, and governments. He trusted nobody anymore, especially after losing his family during the Earth Wars many years ago. Now he only cared about surviving. The Wanderer shook violently as another warning alarm screamed through the ship. "Engine failure in Sector 3, the computer announced. Ryan cursed under his breath and grabbed a small emergency bag filled with supplies. He was preparing to abandon the ship before it exploded completely. The nearest escape pod was located near the cargo bay. As he moved through the dark hallway, the lights suddenly went out, leaving only the red emergency glow around him. The silence became heavy. Then he heard something strange, a soft crying sound. Ryan instantly stopped walking. At first, he thought it was a damaged machine or maybe his imagination playing tricks on him, but then he heard it again, clearer this time. A child crying somewhere inside the cargo bay. His face hardened immediately. "No," he muttered. "I'm not doing this again." Ryan slowly opened the cargo bay door. The large room was filled with broken containers and scattered supplies from the battle. Smoke floated near the ceiling while sparks fell from damaged wires. The crying continued softly from the far corner of the room. Ryan carefully pulled out his plasma pistol and walked toward the sound. One metal container door was slightly open. Inside the container, hidden beneath old blankets, sat a small alien girl. She looked no older than 6 years old. Her silver eyes glowed softly in the darkness, and strange blue marks covered her pale skin. She looked terrified, shaking as she stared at the human standing in front of her. Ryan froze for a moment, surprised to see a child completely alone in a war zone. The little girl held a small broken toy tightly against her chest. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Then the ship shook violently again. Ryan stepped back immediately. "This isn't my problem," he said coldly. He turned away and started walking back toward the escape pods. The child suddenly climbed out of the container and followed him with weak steps. "Wait," she said softly. Ryan ignored her and kept walking faster. The alarms grew louder across the ship, warning that the reactor core was close to exploding. The little girl struggled to keep up behind him. "Please," she cried again. Ryan reached the escape pod door and quickly opened it. The small pod only had enough fuel for one adult passenger. He stepped inside without looking back. For a second, he almost closed the door. Then he heard tiny footsteps running toward him. The alien child grabbed the edge of his jacket with trembling hands. Ryan looked down at her with frustration and exhaustion in his eyes. The girl's glowing silver eyes filled with tears as she looked directly at him. Then she spoke the one word Ryan never expected to hear again: "Dad." Ryan's entire body froze. The word hit him harder than any weapon ever could. Memories rushed through his mind. Memories of his real daughter laughing on Earth before the war destroyed everything he loved. For years he had buried those memories, deep inside himself, refusing to feel anything again. But now this frightened alien child stood before him, crying and calling him the same name his daughter once used. "Please don't leave me, Dad," she whispered. Ryan stared at her silently while the ship continued shaking around them. Outside the broken windows of the cargo bay, dark enemy ships slowly appeared from hyperspace, their weapons charging brightly in the darkness of space. The hunters had found them. Ryan looked at the child, then at the escape pod controls. If he stayed, he could die. If he left, the child would definitely die alone on the ship. For several long seconds, he said nothing. Then another explosion rocked the Wanderer, and the emergency lights suddenly died completely, leaving both of them standing together in darkness. Darkness filled the cargo bay after the lights failed completely. Only the red glow from the enemy ships outside entered through the cracked windows of the Wanderer. Captain Ryan Cole stood silently near the escape pod while the little alien girl still held tightly onto his jacket, afraid he would disappear. If she let go, warning sirens screamed through the dying ship. "Reactor collapse in 8 minutes," the computer announced. Ryan closed his eyes for 1 second, trying to ignore the memories inside his head. He did not want responsibility again. He did not want attachment. And he definitely did not want a child depending on him. But when he looked down at the frightened girl, he saw the same fear he once saw in his own daughter during the Earth Wars. That memory broke something inside him. Ryan took a deep breath, then grabbed the emergency bag beside the escape pod. "Get inside," he said coldly. The alien girl looked surprised for a moment before quickly climbing into the small pod. Ryan entered after her and slammed the door shut just as another explosion ripped through the Wanderer. The escape pod launched violently into space seconds before the cargo ship exploded behind them in a massive ball of fire. The bright explosion lit the darkness around them. The little girl stared silently through the small window while Ryan activated the pod controls. Enemy hunter ships immediately turned toward them. "They saw us," Ryan muttered. Alarms began flashing across the small control panel, warning him that the pod engines were too weak for long-distance travel. The child quietly moved closer, to him still holding her broken toy tightly. "What's your name?" Ryan finally asked while steering through floating debris. The little girl hesitated before answering softly. "Lyra?" Ryan nodded slightly. He noticed strange glowing symbols on her wrist, almost like some kind of identification mark. Before he could ask about them, laser fire suddenly passed beside the escape pod. The hunters opened fire. Ryan immediately pulled the controls hard to the left as explosions filled space around them. The small pod shook violently. Lyra grabbed the seat in fear but stayed surprisingly quiet. Ryan searched the radar desperately, trying to find somewhere to hide. Then Lyra suddenly pointed toward a nearby asteroid field. "There," she whispered. Ryan frowned. "That field is too dangerous," he replied. But Lyra continued staring at the rocks with strange confidence. "They cannot follow there," she said softly. Another blast nearly hit the pod, forcing Ryan to make a fast decision. He pushed the engines toward the asteroid field. Huge rocks surrounded them immediately, spinning wildly through space. The escape pod moved dangerously between narrow gaps while enemy ships followed closely behind. Ryan's hands moved quickly across the controls, sweat covering his forehead as alarms screamed non-stop around him. One mistake would kill them instantly. Suddenly, one hunter ship crashed directly into a massive asteroid and exploded. Another ship lost control after hitting floating debris. Ryan stared in shock. The path through the asteroids almost felt planned, like someone already knew the safe route. He slowly looked toward Lyra. The little girl calmly pointed deeper into the field. "Go left," she whispered. Ryan followed, her direction without understanding why. Seconds later, a giant asteroid smashed into the final hunter ship behind them, destroying it completely. Silence returned to space. Ryan leaned back heavily in his seat, breathing hard. The danger was gone for now. "How did you know the way through?" he asked carefully. Lyra looked down at her toy instead of answering. Ryan studied her quietly, realizing this child was hiding far more than fear. After several minutes, the escape pod finally landed inside an abandoned mining station hidden. Deep within the asteroid field, the station looked old and half destroyed, but it still had oxygen and basic power. Ryan cautiously opened the pod door and stepped outside with his weapon ready. The dark station halls were silent except for the sound of broken machines humming somewhere far away. Lyra stayed close behind him the entire time. Ryan found a small safe room and activated emergency power. Dim lights slowly flickered on around them. For the first time since escaping, the station felt calm. Lyra sat quietly in one corner while Ryan checked supplies. They barely had enough food for a few days. As Ryan cleaned the blood from his injured side, he noticed Lyra watching him carefully. "You should rest," she said softly. Ryan gave a small, tired laugh. You sound older than you look, he replied. Lyra did not smile. Instead, she asked something unexpected. Why do humans protect children? Ryan stopped moving for a moment, surprised by the question. Because that's what parents do, he answered quietly. Lyra looked confused, almost like the idea was completely new to her. Before Ryan could say anything else, the station suddenly received an incoming transmission. An unknown voice echoed through the room. To anyone hiding inside the mining station, the voice said calmly, return the child, and you may live. Ryan's face immediately darkened. Then the screen beside him activated automatically. A reward notice appeared across the monitor. At the center of the screen was Lyra's face. Below it were the words, Wanted, Priority Omega Target, Reward, 50 million credits. Ryan slowly looked toward the frightened little girl standing behind him. And for the first time he realized the entire galaxy might be hunting this child. The old mining station became silent again after the transmission ended. Only the weak sound of broken machines echoed through the dark hallways. Captain Ryan Cole stared at the glowing screen in disbelief, while the reward notice remained in front of him. 50 million credits for one small child. No normal bounty could ever reach that amount, which meant only one thing. Lyra was far more important than she appeared. Ryan slowly turned toward her. The little alien girl stood quietly near the wall, holding her broken toy tightly against her chest, as if it was the only thing making her feel safe. Her glowing silver eyes looked nervous now, almost guilty. You want to explain this? Ryan asked carefully. Lyra lowered her head without answering. Ryan sighed heavily and sat down near the control panel. Exhaustion filled his face. For years he had survived by avoiding problems, not running toward them. But now trouble had found him anyway, and somehow it came in the form of a frightened child calling him Dad. Outside the station windows, huge asteroids slowly floated through space like dark giants, hiding them from enemy scanners for now, but Ryan knew they would not stay hidden forever. Someone powerful wanted Lyra badly enough to search the entire galaxy for her. After several minutes of silence, Lyra finally spoke softly. They will not. Stop hunting me. Ryan looked at her carefully. Who are they? He asked. Lyra hesitated, then slowly walked toward him. The Council, she whispered. Ryan's expression darkened immediately. The Galactic Council controlled most civilized systems in the galaxy. Their armies were massive, and their laws were absolute. Even smugglers and pirates feared them. What would the Council want with a child? Ryan asked. Lyra looked down at the strange glowing marks on her wrist. They made me, she said quietly. Ryan frowned in confusion. What does that mean? For the first time since meeting her, real fear appeared in Lyra's eyes. They created me in a laboratory, she admitted softly. Ryan stayed silent as she continued speaking. They wanted to study humans. That answer surprised him more than anything else. Humans? He repeated. Lyra nodded slowly. The Council fears humans, she explained. They say humans are dangerous because they create emotional bonds stronger than any species in the galaxy. Ryan almost laughed bitterly at that. Most alien races saw humans as violent survivors from endless wars, not emotional protectors. But Lyra continued speaking seriously. The Council wanted to understand why humans protect each other even when it hurts them. Ryan's face slowly became colder. So, they created you? Lyra nodded again. They mixed alien genetics with human emotional patterns, she whispered. Ryan stared at her silently, trying to understand what he was hearing. They taught me languages, history, and behavior, Lyra said. But the scientists could not understand human feelings completely. Her silver eyes slowly lifted toward Ryan. Then they brought me to you. Ryan's body suddenly tensed. What? They watched you for years, Lyra explained softly. You were a soldier during the Earth Wars. You protected civilians even after losing your family. Ryan's jaw tightened immediately at the mention of his past. How do you know about my daughter? He asked quietly. Lyra looked nervous again. The scientists studied your memories, she admitted. Anger flashed across Ryan's face. Nobody had the right to touch those memories. Nobody. Before he could speak again, the station lights suddenly flickered violently. A loud metallic sound echoed through the hallway outside. Ryan instantly grabbed his plasma pistol and stood up. Someone had entered the station. The radar screen showed multiple life forms moving through the lower levels. "Hunters," Ryan muttered. Lyra's face filled with fear immediately. "They found us already," she whispered. Ryan quickly shut down the room lights and moved toward the door carefully. Heavy footsteps echoed closer through the hallway, followed by strange mechanical sounds. These were not ordinary bounty hunters. Ryan peeked through a broken security camera screen and saw armored mercenaries entering the station. Their black armor carried the symbol of the Galactic Council. At least 10 soldiers moved through the halls with military precision, scanning every room. "They came too fast," Ryan whispered. Then he noticed something worse. A tall figure wearing a dark silver mask stood behind the soldiers silently, watching everything. Even the mercenaries seemed afraid of him. "Who is that?" Ryan asked softly. Lyra's face became pale immediately. "The Warden," she whispered fearfully. Ryan had heard rumors about that name before. The Warden was known across the outer systems as the Council's most dangerous hunter, a man who never failed his mission, and now he was here for Lyra personally. The station suddenly shook as explosions echoed from below. The mercenaries were forcing open sealed doors level by level. "They're coming," Lyra whispered while backing away nervously. Ryan checked the power levels on his pistol, almost empty. One fight against trained soldiers would kill them both. Then Lyra suddenly grabbed his arm gently. "There is another way out," she said softly. Ryan looked surprised. "How do you know?" Lyra pointed toward an old maintenance tunnel hidden behind broken storage containers. "I remember this place," she whispered. Ryan stared at her carefully again, realizing she knew far more than she admitted. The sound of heavy boots grew louder. Outside the room, no more time remained. Ryan grabbed his bag quickly and motioned for Lyra to follow him toward the hidden tunnel. But just before they disappeared into the darkness, a cold voice echoed through the hallway behind them. "You cannot protect her forever, human." Ryan slowly turned his head. The masked warden stood at the end of the corridor watching them silently, and somehow, despite the mask hiding his face, Ryan could feel the hunter smiling. The hidden maintenance tunnel was cold, narrow, and almost completely dark. Captain Ryan Cole ran forward while Lyra stayed close behind him, her small footsteps echoing through the metal passage. Far behind them, the sound of armored soldiers grew louder every second. The warden's voice still echoed inside Ryan's mind, cold and confident like a machine that already knew the ending. "You cannot protect her forever, human." Ryan hated those words because part of him feared they might be true. The tunnel shook violently as explosions rocked the mining station above them, dust and sparks falling from the ceiling around them. "They are sealing the exits," Lyra whispered nervously. Ryan tightened his grip on the plasma pistol while checking the tunnel map on his wrist device. "There should be an old transport rail ahead," he said quietly. "If it still works, we might escape before they surround the station." They continued moving deeper underground while emergency alarms screamed through the old station. The air became colder with every step. After several minutes, the tunnel finally opened into a giant underground rail chamber. Broken cargo. Trains rested silently on old magnetic tracks, covered in dust from years of abandonment. Ryan quickly searched the control station nearby, hoping at least one transport unit still had power. Behind him, Lyra suddenly froze. Her glowing silver eyes stared into the darkness at the far side of the chamber. "What is it?" Ryan asked immediately. Lyra looked frightened. "He's close," she whispered. At that exact moment, gunfire exploded behind them. Council mercenaries entered the chamber from the tunnel entrance, their weapons lighting up the darkness with blue plasma blasts. Ryan instantly pulled Lyra behind a cargo container and returned fire. The loud battle echoed through the underground station. One mercenary fell after Ryan hit his shoulder, but more soldiers kept moving forward without fear. They were trained professionals, cold and efficient. "Stay down," Ryan ordered Lyra while firing again. But the enemy numbers kept growing. Ryan realized quickly that they could not win this fight. Then something strange happened. One soldier, suddenly stopped moving in the middle of the chamber, his weapon powered down by itself. Another soldier's helmet lights flickered violently before shutting off completely. Within seconds, half the mercenaries lost control of their equipment. Ryan stared in confusion. Lyra stood slowly behind him, her silver eyes glowing brighter than before. The strange blue marks on her skin also began glowing softly under the darkness. The nearby machines reacted instantly, screens flickering, cables shaking, and power systems activating without commands. She's doing this, Ryan realized silently. The mercenaries panicked as their weapons failed completely. "Fall back," one soldier shouted. But before they could retreat, the chamber light suddenly exploded, throwing the room into darkness again. Ryan grabbed Lyra's hand immediately. "Move!" he shouted. They ran toward the transport rails while confused. Mercenaries struggled behind them. Ryan jumped into the nearest cargo train and activated emergency power. At first, nothing happened. Then the old engine suddenly roared back to life. The train shot forward across the magnetic rails just as plasma fire exploded behind them. The underground tunnel blurred around them as the train gained speed. Lyra sat silently beside Ryan, breathing heavily. Ryan looked at her carefully. "You shut down their weapons," he said quietly. Lyra lowered her eyes. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. Ryan remained silent for a moment. The council was not hunting her just because she was special. They were hunting her because she was dangerous. Outside the train windows, dark tunnels rushed past endlessly. Finally, the train emerged from the underground station into open space docks hidden inside the asteroid field. Ryan immediately spotted an old cargo ship connected to the station. It looked damaged but operational. "That's our way out," he said. They quickly left the train and ran across the docking platform toward the ship. But before they reached it, a figure suddenly appeared ahead of them, blocking the path. The warden. His silver mask reflected the weak station lights while his long black coat moved slowly in the cold air. He carried no weapon in his hands. He did not need one. Ryan instantly raised his plasma pistol. The warden simply tilted his head slightly, almost amused. "You continue risking your life for an experiment," he said calmly. "She's a child," Ryan answered coldly. "No," the warden replied. "She is the future of control." Lyra stepped backward fearfully behind Ryan. The warden's dark eyes slowly turned toward her. "The council created you to understand humanity," he continued, "but instead you bonded with one." Ryan frowned slightly. "What does that mean?" For the first time, the warden's calm voice became darker. "It means the experiment succeeded beyond expectations," he said. "Human emotional attachment is stronger than predicted." Ryan tightened his grip on the pistol. "And that scares the council?" The warden nodded slowly. "If humans can emotionally influence other species, they become impossible to control." Silence filled the docking platform for several seconds. Then the warden looked directly at Ryan again. "You should have left her on the ship," he said quietly. Ryan's face hardened immediately, but before anyone could move, warning sirens suddenly echoed across the station again. A massive energy wave shook the entire asteroid field. All three of them looked toward space outside the docks. Hundreds of giant warships suddenly emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the asteroid field completely. Ryan's blood ran cold. The Galactic Council fleet had arrived, and every weapon in space was now pointed directly at them. The giant Council warships surrounded the asteroid field like dark metal giants waiting for war. Blue energy weapons glowed across their massive hulls while smaller fighter ships filled the space between them like hungry predators. Inside the old docking station, silence fell heavily around Ryan, Lyra, and the warden. Even the warden looked surprised by the sudden arrival of the full fleet. "They came faster than expected," he muttered quietly. Warning alarms screamed through the station again as every screen displayed the same message: "Surrender the starborn child immediately." Captain Ryan Cole slowly stepped in front of Lyra protectively. The little girl held tightly onto his jacket. While staring fearfully at the fleet outside, Ryan's mind raced quickly. There was no escape route left, no hidden tunnel, no safe station, no backup plan. Only an old cargo ship that would never survive against an entire fleet. The warden calmly walked toward the large station window and watched the warships silently. "You still do not understand what she is," he said without turning around. Ryan kept his weapon aimed carefully at him. "Then explain it," he replied coldly. For a few seconds, the masked hunter remained silent, almost thinking carefully about his words. Finally, he turned slowly toward them. "Long ago, the Council studied humanity after the Earth Wars," he explained. "They expected humans to destroy themselves completely." Ryan's face darkened at the memory of Earth burning under endless war. "But humans survived," the warden continued. "Not because of technology, strength, or weapons," he pointed toward Ryan directly. "You survived because humans protect each other even when logic says they should not." Ryan said nothing. The warden slowly walked closer. "Alien races fear pain, fear sacrifice, fear emotional attachment," he explained calmly. "But humans willingly suffer for people they love." Lyra listened carefully while holding Ryan's arm tightly. The Council realized something dangerous. The warden continued. "If human emotional bonds spread across the galaxy, control becomes impossible." Ryan frowned. "What does that have to do with Lyra?" The warden looked toward the child. She was designed to test whether human emotional attachment could influence another species permanently. Ryan suddenly understood. "They made her bond with humans," he whispered. The warden nodded slowly. "At first, the scientists believed emotions were weakness," he said. "But Lyra developed stronger empathy than any subject before her." Lyra lowered her eyes sadly. "They were afraid of me," she whispered softly. Ryan looked at her carefully. For the first time, he understood why she always seemed confused by simple things like family, protection, and kindness. She had been created inside laboratories by people who studied emotions without truly understanding them. Then the warden revealed something even worse. "The experiment changed after she bonded with you," he said quietly. Ryan's eyes narrowed immediately. "What do you mean?" The warden's voice became serious. "Your emotional connection is now permanent," he explained. "If she dies, your neural system collapses with hers." Ryan froze completely. Lyra looked shocked too. "That's impossible," Ryan said. Sharply. "No," the warden replied. "The Starborn Project linked human emotional patterns directly with alien neural structures." Ryan suddenly remembered how strange he felt every time Lyra was afraid or sad. Almost like her emotions affected him physically. Now it finally made sense. The bond between them was not normal. It was deeper than science should allow. Before Ryan could ask another question, the docking station suddenly exploded violently. Council soldiers breached the outer walls. Smoke and fire rushed through the corridors while emergency systems failed everywhere. "They're inside," Lyra cried. The warden immediately drew a black energy blade from his side, its glowing edge cutting through the darkness like fire. Ryan raised his pistol again, unsure if the hunter was friend or enemy anymore, but the warden surprised him. "Get the child to the ship," he ordered calmly. Ryan stared at him in disbelief. "You're helping us?" The warden looked toward the incoming soldiers silently. "The Council no longer wants containment," he said quietly. "They want extermination." Heavy footsteps echoed closer through the smoke-filled hallway. Dozens of armored Council soldiers appeared seconds later, opening fire instantly. The docking station turned into chaos. Ryan grabbed Lyra and ran toward the cargo ship while plasma blasts exploded around them. Behind them, the warden moved like a shadow through the battlefield, his energy blade cutting through soldiers with terrifying speed. Ryan had never seen someone fight like that before. The hunter moved almost like a machine built only for war. More explosions shook the station as fighter ships attacked from outside, tearing apart entire sections of metal walls. Ryan and Lyra finally reached the cargo ship ramp, but just before entering, a powerful blast hit nearby and threw Ryan hard against the ground. Pain exploded through his body. His pistol slid away across the floor while blood ran down his arm. "Ryan!" Lyra screamed fearfully. Several soldiers quickly surrounded them with weapons raised. Ryan struggled to stand, but his injured body refused to move fast enough. The lead soldier aimed directly at Lyra. "Terminate the target," he ordered coldly. Lyra's silver eyes filled with tears as she looked toward Ryan helplessly. Then something inside her finally broke. A massive wave of blue energy exploded from her body across the entire docking station. Every machine instantly shut down. Weapons failed. Lights died. Engines stopped. Even the Council warships outside flickered in space as the energy pulse spread through the asteroid field. The soldiers froze in fear. Ryan stared at Lyra in complete shock while glowing energy surrounded the crying child like a storm, and deep, in space beyond the Council fleet, something enormous suddenly appeared from hyperspace. An entire hidden human fleet had arrived. The entire asteroid field fell silent after the massive blue energy waves spread through space. Council warships lost power for several seconds, their weapons shutting down one after another while warning alarms echoed across every ship. Inside the destroyed docking station, frightened soldiers stared at Lyra as glowing energy surrounded her small body like living light. Captain Ryan Cole slowly pushed himself off the floor despite the pain shooting through his injured arm. He looked at Lyra in shock. The frightened child who once hid inside a cargo container now stood at the center of a power strong enough to disable an entire fleet. But before anyone could react further, deep space suddenly opened behind the Council armada. Huge ships emerged from hyperspace. One after another, dark gray battleships covered in human military markings appeared across the stars like silent giants returning from the dead. Hundreds of them. The Council fleet immediately changed formation, weapons turning toward the new arrivals. Ryan's eyes widened slowly. Humanity. After years of silence and disappearance, humanity had finally returned. Council soldiers inside. The station became nervous instantly, whispers spreading between them. "It's impossible," one soldier muttered fearfully. "They said the human fleets were destroyed," another whispered. Ryan watched the massive ships carefully while old memories returned to him. During the Earth Wars, humanity's fleets were famous across the galaxy for refusing surrender even against impossible odds. Many alien races believed humans had gone, extinct after the final war. But now the truth stood before everyone. Humans had survived in secret. Rebuilding their strength beyond the outer systems, a transmission suddenly appeared across every screen in the station. A calm female voice echoed loudly through the damaged halls. "This is Admiral Elena Torres of the United Human Fleet. All Council ships are ordered to stand down immediately," the Council commander answered seconds later through another transmission. "The child belongs to the Galactic Council," he said coldly. "She is classified as a dangerous biological weapon." Ryan looked toward Lyra instantly. The little girl lowered her glowing eyes sadly after hearing those words. But Admiral Torres answered without hesitation. "She is a child," the Admiral replied firmly. "And humanity does not abandon children." Those words hit Ryan harder than he expected. For years he had tried to forget what humanity once stood for, but hearing those words again reminded him of the people Earth used to protect before war destroyed everything. Outside the station, human warships slowly moved forward, forming a shield between the Council fleet and the asteroid field. Tension filled space like a ticking bomb waiting to explode. Inside the docking station, the remaining Council soldiers slowly backed away from Lyra, uncertain and afraid after witnessing her power. Only the warden remained calm, standing silently near the destroyed hallway entrance. Ryan carefully approached him. "You knew humans were alive," Ryan said quietly. The masked hunter nodded once. "The Council always knew," he admitted. "They feared humanity would eventually return stronger than before." Ryan glanced toward the human fleet again. "And Lyra?" he asked. The warden's voice became darker. "She is proof that humanity's greatest strength cannot be controlled," he said. "Attachment, loyalty, sacrifice." Before Ryan could answer, another transmission suddenly appeared. This time, directed specifically toward him. "Captain Ryan Cole," the female admiral said calmly. "You and the child are ordered to board the human flagship immediately." Ryan frowned slightly. Something about her tone felt strange, too formal, too careful. "What happens to Lyra after that?" he asked. Several seconds of silence followed before the answer came. The child will be transferred into secure scientific protection, Admiral Torres replied. Ryan's face hardened immediately. Scientific protection. He knew exactly what those words really meant. Experiments, laboratories, tests, the same nightmare Lyra escaped from before. Lyra slowly grabbed Ryan's hand, fear returning to her silver eyes again. They will take me away, she whispered softly. Ryan looked down at her silently. For a moment, memories of his real daughter filled his mind again. Memories of failing to protect his family during the Earth Wars. He still remembered the helpless feeling of losing everything. And now history wanted to repeat itself. No. Ryan slowly tightened his grip around Lyra's small hand. Not again. He activated the station communicator himself. This is Ryan Cole, he said firmly. I'm not handing her over to anyone. Shock spread across the room instantly. Even the warden turned slightly toward him in surprise. The Admiral's voice returned colder this time. Captain Cole, you are disobeying direct military orders. Ryan gave a bitter smile. I stopped being a soldier a long time ago, he answered. Outside the station, tension between the two fleets increased immediately, weapons charging brighter across the darkness of space. One wrong move could start another galactic war. Lyra looked up at Ryan nervously. Why are you helping me? She asked quietly. Ryan looked at her for several seconds before answering honestly. Because someone should have helped you sooner, he replied softly. For the first time since meeting him, Lyra smiled slightly through her tears. But before anyone could speak again, emergency alarm suddenly screamed louder than before. A new fleet had just appeared near the asteroid field. Unknown black warships surrounded both the Council and human fleets at once. Ryan's face slowly darkened as he recognized the symbol on the enemy ships. Pirates, and not ordinary pirates. These ships belonged to the Void Reavers, the most brutal raiders in the outer galaxy. Then a deep voice echoed across every communication channel. Thank you for gathering everyone together, the pirate leader laughed coldly. Now we only need the girl. The asteroid field became a battlefield within seconds. Human warships, Council fleets, and the black ships of the Void Reavers filled the darkness of space while alarms screamed across every communication channel. Blue plasma blasts and red laser fire exploded between the fleets like violent storms among the stars. Inside the damaged docking station, Captain Ryan Cole immediately pulled Lyra behind a broken control panel as explosions shook the walls around them. The pirate leader's voice continued echoing through the station speakers, cold and confident. Hand over the girl, and maybe some of you survive. He laughed. Ryan's face hardened with anger. Everybody wanted Lyra. The Council wanted to control her, the pirates wanted to sell her, and even humanity wanted to study her. For the first time in years, Ryan understood something clearly. The child beside him had nobody except him, and he refused to fail her. The warden slowly walked toward the shattered station window while watching the battle outside silently. The Void Reavers never attack fleets this large, he said quietly. Ryan frowned. Then why are they here? The warden turned slightly toward Lyra. Someone hired them, he answered. Before Ryan could ask more questions, the station suddenly shook violently as pirate boarding ships crashed into the outer docking ring. Metal doors exploded inward while heavily armed raiders stormed inside like wolves. Gunfire instantly filled the station again. Council soldiers fought pirates in the hallways while human marines landed from above, turning the station into complete chaos. Ryan grabbed his plasma pistol and looked toward Lyra. Stay close to me no matter what happens, he ordered. Lyra nodded fearfully, gripping his hand tightly. The warden activated his black energy blade once more. For several seconds, Ryan expected the hunter to leave them behind. Instead, the warden stood beside them. I will clear the path, he said calmly. Ryan stared at him in surprise. Why help us? He asked. The warden remained silent for a moment before answering quietly. Because the Council was wrong about humanity. Then he moved forward into battle like a shadow. The hallway erupted into violence immediately. The warden fought through pirate raiders with terrifying speed while Ryan protected Lyra behind him. Explosions shattered the walls around them as smoke filled the air. Every second felt like survival by pure luck. Finally, they reached the central communication tower of the station, the only place powerful enough to broadcast across the entire battlefield. Ryan quickly sealed the doors behind them while Lyra looked around nervously. "What do we do now?" she asked softly. Ryan stared at the communication controls silently. Then an idea slowly formed in his mind. "The truth," he said quietly. Outside, humans and aliens continued killing each other because of fear, lies, and control. But maybe that could still change. Ryan activated the station-wide communication system while Lyra watched him carefully. "What are you doing?" she whispered. Ryan looked at her gently. "You said humans taught you something important," he replied softly. "Now the galaxy needs to hear it." He connected the broadcast directly into every fleet communication channel nearby. Suddenly, every soldier, pilot, and commander across the battlefield received the same live transmission. Lyra froze nervously when she realized millions of people were now listening to her voice. Ryan knelt beside her carefully. "You don't have to be afraid anymore," he told her quietly. Lyra looked at him for several seconds before slowly stepping toward the broadcast screen. Outside the station windows, the giant battle still raged across space. Then Lyra finally spoke, her small voice spreading across the stars. "My name is Lyra," she said softly. "The Council created me to study humans." Across the fleets, soldiers stopped, fighting long enough to listen. "They said humans were dangerous monsters," Lyra continued, tears forming in her glowing silver eyes. "But humans protected me when nobody else did." Ryan stood silently behind her while the station shook around them. "They taught me what family means," Lyra whispered. "They taught me kindness, sacrifice, and love." Silence slowly spread through the battlefield communication channels. Even the pirate ship stopped firing temporarily. Then, Lyra said the words that changed everything. "Humans are not monsters," she cried softly. "They are the only ones who gave me a home." Across the galaxy, millions heard the fear and honesty in the child's voice. Council officers looked uncertain. Human commanders lowered their weapons, and even some pirates hesitated after hearing her message. For years, the galaxy feared humanity because of old wars and propaganda. But now the truth came from the one person created to expose them. The Council's lies were finally breaking apart. Suddenly, one final pirate battleship targeted the station directly, preparing to destroy everyone inside. Warning alarms screamed loudly through the tower. "We have to leave now," Ryan shouted. The warden appeared beside the doorway again, injured but still standing. "There is one escape ship left," he said quickly. Ryan grabbed Lyra's hand and ran with her through the collapsing station while explosions tore the structure apart behind them. Outside, human fighters protected their path while council ships began turning against the remaining pirates. For the first time, humans and aliens fought together instead of against each other. Ryan, Lyra, and the warden finally reached the final escape ship seconds before the station exploded completely behind them. The small ship launched into space, as fire consumed the asteroid base forever. Inside the cockpit, Lyra sat silently beside Ryan while watching the battle slowly end. Outside, the pirate fleet retreated, council ships powered down their weapons, and the human fleet remained peacefully. Between them all, the war was finally stopping. Years later, far away from the old battlefields, Ryan lived peacefully on a small colony world near the edge of explored space. The galaxy slowly changed after Lyra's message spread everywhere. Humans were no longer feared as monsters, but respected for the loyalty and compassion they carried even after endless suffering. One evening, Lyra sat beside Ryan outside their small home while watching the stars quietly. She looked older now, stronger and happier than the frightened child hidden inside the cargo container long ago. After several minutes of silence, she smiled softly at him. "Do you regret saving me?" she asked quietly. Ryan looked at her and smiled for the first time in many years. "No," he answered. Gently, "You saved me first." Above them, the stars shined peacefully across a galaxy finally learning what humanity truly was.